Growth doesn't start with adding more, it starts with removing what holds you back. Everyone wants to grow. Everyone says they're ready to change. But the truth is, most people stay the same not because they don't want more, but because they refuse to let go of what keeps them small. You cannot rise while you're still holding on to comfort, fear, and excuses. You cannot evolve if you're addicted to approval, distraction, and easy paths. Real growth is not about motivation, it's about honesty. It's about taking a hard look at yourself and asking, what needs to change? In this audiobook, we'll uncover the 10 things that silently sabotage your growth. The habits, beliefs, and patterns that keep you trapped in cycles of almost. And you'll learn how to replace them, one by one, with systems that expand your discipline, focus, and freedom. Because growth isn't an event. It's a process of subtraction. You remove what limits you. You refine what remains. And what's left is your potential unfiltered. So take a breath. Be honest. This is where you stop staying the same and start becoming who you were meant to be. Thing 1. Comfort feels like safety, familiar, predictable, warm. It whispers, stay here. You're fine. Don't risk losing what you have. And most people listen. They spend their lives orbiting the same routines, the same fears, the same patterns, mistaking comfort for peace. But comfort is rarely peace. It's quiet decay. It's a slow surrender of potential disguised as contentment. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you trade growth for ease. You trade long-term power for short-term relief. The truth is uncomfortable. Comfort doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. It keeps you the same even when life is begging you to evolve. Think about it, nothing great has ever come from comfort. The greatest achievements, the boldest ideas, the strongest characters, all were born in discomfort. Discomfort is the birthplace of every version you've ever wanted to become. Yet most people spend their entire lives avoiding it, never realizing they're avoiding their own transformation. You can't grow and stay comfortable at the same time. The two are enemies. Growth demands friction. It demands that you stretch past your limits, confront your fears, and question your habits. Comfort, on the other hand, demands nothing, except that you stay exactly where you are. When you start to change your relationship with comfort, life begins to expand. You start noticing that everything you want, confidence, peace, discipline, freedom, exists on the other side of discomfort. The problem is, most people don't last long enough in that space to reach it. They step into discomfort for a moment, feel resistance, and retreat back to what feels safe. But growth doesn't reward the brief visitor. It rewards the one who stays long enough to adapt. Discomfort is not punishment, it's preparation. Every time you endure something hard, you're not breaking, you're building. You're teaching your mind that difficulty isn't danger, that pain isn't failure. You're expanding your threshold. The first step to change is awareness, noticing how often you choose comfort over growth. It happens in small ways. When you skip the workout. When you avoid the conversation. When you distract yourself instead of facing your thoughts. When you choose routine over risk. These moments seem small, but they build a mindset, a habit of retreating from resistance. And that habit becomes your ceiling. Growth, on the other hand, is a habit too. It's built every time you step into discomfort intentionally. Every time you do the thing you don't want to do, wake up early, say no to distraction, hold yourself accountable, you're rewiring your relationship with challenge. You're training your brain to see discomfort not as pain, but as progress. The truth is, the human mind craves challenge. It's wired to adapt, evolve, and overcome. When you deny yourself challenge, you deny yourself evolution. You dull your own instincts for resilience. That's why long periods of comfort often lead to anxiety and stagnation. Without challenge, your mind loses its edge. Without friction, your spirit loses its fire. The reason most people feel stuck isn't because life is against them. It's because they've become too comfortable where they are. They're not trapped by circumstance, they're trapped by softness. And nothing grows in soft conditions. To change your relationship with comfort, you must redefine what comfort means. Stop seeing it as safety. Start seeing it as limitation. Real comfort isn't the absence of struggle. It's the confidence to face struggle without fear. Real comfort is not staying where it's easy. It's trusting that you can handle what's hard. When you start chasing challenge instead of avoiding it, life shifts. The discomfort that once scared you becomes your signal that you're on the right path. Every time something feels hard, you'll learn to recognize it as growth in motion. Discomfort builds confidence because it proves your capability. The first time you step outside your comfort zone, you'll feel fear. The second time, resistance. The third time, power. Because once you realize you can survive discomfort, even thrive in it, fear loses its grip. Comfort keeps you small because it feeds the illusion of control. You believe you're in charge because everything feels predictable. But predictability isn't control, it's confinement. Growth happens when you willingly walk into the unknown and trust yourself to adapt. Every successful person has one thing in common: they are comfortable being uncomfortable. They don't need certainty to act. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They've trained themselves to move despite fear, to think clearly under stress, and to persist when others give up. That's not luck, it's conditioning. You can start conditioning yourself today. It doesn't require massive changes, just small, intentional acts of discomfort every day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Wake up an hour earlier. Speak up when your voice trembles. Say no when people expect you to say yes. Push a little further in the gym, in your work, in your self-discipline. Each act builds your tolerance for pressure. Discomfort is not something to escape, it's something to seek. It's where strength hides. When you stop running from it, you stop running from your potential. But here's the truth, your mind will fight this. It will try to pull you back to the familiar, to convince you that comfort equals safety. It will whisper that you're too tired, too late, too overwhelmed to keep pushing. That's not truth, that's resistance. And resistance is a sign that growth is near. When you start seeing resistance as proof that you're expanding, you stop fearing it. You start craving it. You begin to realize that every moment of discomfort is a step toward becoming someone stronger, wiser, more capable than you were yesterday. If comfort is your master, fear is your guard. They work together. Fear keeps you where comfort can control you. The only way to break that pattern is through consistent, conscious exposure to discomfort. The more you face what you fear, the smaller fear becomes. Change your relationship with comfort by reframing your mindset. Don't ask, how can I make this easier? Ask, how can I make myself stronger? The goal isn't to escape challenge, it's to expand your capacity to endure it. When you start living this way, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd. Most people stop at discomfort. The few who push past it find clarity, power, and freedom on the other side. So begin small, but begin. Step into discomfort daily. Let it stretch you, shape you, strengthen you. Because every step away from comfort is a step closer to mastery. The moment you begin stepping into discomfort, something incredible starts to happen. Your mind adapts. What once terrified you becomes manageable, and what once broke you becomes training. This is how growth truly works. Through repeated exposure, your comfort zone expands until the things that once drained you become effortless. But that expansion only happens when you stay long enough in discomfort for the lesson to sink in. Most people never do. They touch discomfort for a moment, feel resistance, and retreat back to ease. And that single act, repeated daily, builds a life of stagnation. You can't evolve and retreat. You can't change if you always run back to the familiar the second life stretches you. Every version of you that's waiting, stronger, calmer, more confident, lives just beyond that stretch point. The reason comfort is so dangerous is that it's invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It disguises as routine, as peace, as normal. But comfort isn't neutral. It's quietly shaping your identity every day. The longer you live inside it, the more it convinces you that discomfort is unsafe. And once you believe that, growth becomes impossible. Comfort will tell you things like, you deserve to rest, even though you've done nothing hard today. You failed before, don't try again. You're not ready, wait until you feel confident. But comfort lies. It's not protecting you, it's pacifying you. Growth doesn't wait for readiness. It demands movement before comfort. And once you start, you realize that confidence doesn't come before challenge. It's built through challenge. You have to train your brain to seek the unfamiliar, to crave situations that make you uncomfortable, because those are the situations that expand you. The mind grows only when it's stretched beyond its limits. Like a muscle, it needs resistance to strengthen. The problem is that we've been conditioned to believe comfort equals success. We build entire lives around ease, convenient jobs, predictable routines, familiar relationships. And yet, deep down, we wonder why we feel restless, unfulfilled, and anxious. That's because comfort creates a slow death of purpose. When life becomes too easy, it stops being meaningful. Discomfort, on the other hand, brings you alive. It awakens focus, presence, and determination. It reminds you that you're not here just to survive. You're here to evolve. To truly change your relationship with comfort, you have to shift your internal definition of success. Success isn't having everything figured out, it's having the courage to keep going when things are uncertain. Success is not ease, it's endurance. It's doing what's right even when it's inconvenient. When you stop chasing comfort, you start chasing growth. And growth transforms everything, your relationships, your confidence, your peace. Because the person who's comfortable with discomfort becomes immune to fear. Fear feeds on avoidance. Every time you run from discomfort, fear grows stronger. But when you face it repeatedly, you drain its power. What once terrified you becomes tolerable. What once felt impossible becomes familiar. That's the secret of all transformation, repetition of discomfort. Doing hard things again and again until they stop feeling hard. That's how warriors are made. That's how strong minds are forged. Look at your life right now. Where are you too comfortable? Which habits are keeping you small? Which environments keep you from challenging yourself? Which people encourage your excuses more than your evolution? Be honest with yourself. Growth begins in truth. You can't change what you won't confront. Start by breaking the smallest patterns first. If your comfort is sleeping in, wake up earlier. If your comfort is silence, speak up. If your comfort is isolation, engage. If your comfort is chaos, seek calm. Discomfort looks different for everyone. The goal is to find yours and face it daily. Over time, discomfort becomes your teacher. It shows you what you're capable of. It reveals the limits you thought you had, and then it shatters them. You begin to see that pain isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's permission. Permission to evolve, to rebuild, to rise stronger. And that's when life starts to shift. You stop living reactively, avoiding pain, chasing ease, and you start living intentionally. You begin to design your growth instead of waiting for life to force it on you. There's a quiet pride that comes with choosing discomfort on purpose. When you wake up earlier, when you push through fatigue, when you do the thing you once feared, you start earning your own respect. And self-respect is the seed of confidence. Every time you follow through, you're building evidence that you're capable. That evidence compounds over time. Soon your inner dialogue changes from I can't to I will. That's the moment you stop needing motivation, because your actions have already proven your power. But the work never ends. Comfort will always try to sneak back in, whispering, "Take it easy. You've done enough." That's when you must remind yourself, growth has no finish line. You're not chasing perfection, you're pursuing expansion. Your relationship with comfort will define your future. Because every decision you make, every choice to act or retreat, builds the version of you that either evolves or stays stuck. The question isn't whether you'll feel discomfort, you will. The question is whether you'll use it as a wall or a doorway. Most see discomfort and stop. The few see it and step through. Choose to be one of the few. Because every major transformation in your life will start with one decision. The decision to stop protecting your comfort and start protecting your potential. Remember, comfort is seductive because it asks nothing of you. But that's exactly why it's dangerous. Nothing grows there. Nothing changes there. It's the slow death of dreams disguised as peace. Discomfort, though painful, is honest. It shows you where you are and what needs work. It's the mirror that reveals your gaps, and the forge that fills them. You don't grow by staying safe. You grow by stretching your limits, by being brave enough to live where others retreat. So step forward. Into the hard, into the new, into the unknown. Let it challenge you, test you, even break you if it must. Because on the other side of that breaking is the version of you that was waiting all along. Make discomfort your home. Make growth your lifestyle. And make becoming your only mission. Thing 2. Every word you speak to yourself is a seed. Some grow into strength, others into fear, but they all take root. Long before the world tells you what's possible, your mind already has. And that voice, the one that runs quietly beneath every action, every hesitation, every dream, that voice decides who you become. Your internal dialogue defines your limits long before the world does. You don't fail because life said no. You fail because your inner voice did first. You don't stop because the world blocks your path. You stop because your mind convinced you it's not worth trying. Most people don't realize this. Their self-talk is the most consistent influence in their life. You hear yourself more than anyone else. And if that voice is filled with doubt, fear, and self-criticism, it becomes impossible to grow, because you can't build a strong life on weak words. Stop using language that weakens you, phrases like, I can't, it's too late, I'm not ready, maybe someday. These aren't harmless phrases. They're commands to your subconscious. Every time you repeat them, your brain listens and obeys. It stops looking for solutions. It stops believing there's a way. Your mind is a mirror. It reflects what you tell it. If you feed it defeat, it will project helplessness. If you feed it power, it will project possibility. The words you choose are not just descriptions. They're directions. They guide how you think, how you act, and how you feel about yourself. If you constantly tell yourself you're not enough, you will unconsciously sabotage every chance to prove otherwise. You'll find ways to fail that confirm your belief. Because the mind's deepest desire is to stay consistent with its self-image, even if that image is negative. So, if you want to grow, you have to reprogram your inner dialogue. You have to teach your mind to speak a new language, one rooted in truth, not fear. Because the truth is, you are capable, you are adaptable, and you are unfinished. And that's power. Unfinished means there's more to build, more to learn, more to become. It means your story isn't over, it's still being written. Every mistake, every setback, every moment of doubt is just part of your evolution. When you start talking to yourself from that place, the place of progress, not perfection, you stop shaming your past and start shaping your future. Here's the secret. Your self-talk creates your emotional reality. It affects how you feel about yourself and how you face challenges. If you say, I'm nervous but capable, your body prepares for action. If you say, I can't handle this, your body prepares for retreat. Words literally shift your physiology, your emotions, and your focus. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you entertain. Every thought has a doorway. You can either invite it in or close it out. And the more often you choose empowering thoughts, the more automatic they become. Over time, confidence becomes your default language. Start listening to your inner voice intentionally. Notice how often it speaks in limitation. How often it predicts failure before effort. How often it labels you with words that don't serve you, lazy, unworthy, broken, behind. Once you notice the pattern, you can interrupt it. When your mind says, I can't, answer, I can learn. When it says, I failed, respond, I'm growing. When it whispers, I'll never be enough, remind it, I already am becoming more. This isn't toxic positivity. It's mental training. You're not lying to yourself. You're leading yourself. You're teaching your mind to focus on progress, not paralysis. If you don't take control of your self-talk will take control of you. And that voice, left unchecked, will turn every challenge into confirmation of your fear. You'll start believing the world is against you when really, it's your own words working against you. Think about it. The most confident, disciplined, and successful people aren't immune to doubt. They've just trained their inner voice to be a coach instead of a critic. They still hear fear, but they don't follow it. They still feel insecurity, but they don't obey it. Your inner dialogue is either your prison or your passport. It can hold you hostage in limitation, or it can unlock the mindset that takes you anywhere. To start changing that dialogue, you must create awareness of your mental language. Write down your recurring thoughts. The ones that play when things get hard. I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I always mess up. Then ask, would I ever say this to someone I love? If the answer is no, then why do you say it to yourself? You don't become strong by bullying your mind into obedience. You become strong by teaching it patience, kindness, and direction. Because your mind isn't your enemy, it's your student. And like any student, it learns best through consistent, calm correction. When you fail, don't say, "I'm worthless." Say, "I learned." When you feel fear, don't say, "I can't." Say, "This is uncomfortable, and that means I'm growing." When you're behind, don't say, "I'm late." Say, "I'm right on time for my own path." Words are energy. They shape how you interpret the world. The stronger your internal language, the stronger your reality becomes. Start your mornings by speaking power into existence. Tell yourself, "I can handle what comes. I've survived worse. I am improving daily. I don't need to feel ready to move forward. I am still becoming, and that's enough." It may feel unnatural at first. You may even feel like you're pretending. But that's how all new habits begin. The first push always feels fake, until repetition turns it into truth. Remember, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's repeated. Whatever you tell it often enough, it believes. If you keep saying you're broken, it will build a reality that matches that story. But if you start saying, "I'm healing, I'm growing, I'm learning," it will start creating evidence for that instead. The power to rewrite your life begins with the power to rewrite your inner dialogue. And it starts with a simple, life-changing truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. That means you don't have to believe every negative thing your mind says. You can choose which thoughts to empower and which to let go. That's what real mental freedom looks like. So from this day forward, speak to yourself as someone you're responsible for strengthening. Be your own ally, not your adversary. Be the voice that encourages action, not excuses. Because the way you talk to yourself doesn't just reflect who you are, it creates who you become. The words you repeat in silence are the architecture of your entire mindset. Every sentence you whisper internally becomes a brick, building either a fortress of strength or a prison of self-doubt. Most people never realize how much of their suffering is self-authored. They're not destroyed by the opinions of others, but by the quiet sentences they've rehearsed for years. Your mind listens when you speak. It records everything. Every harsh word, every self-criticism, every "I'm not enough" becomes part of your internal blueprint. And the more you repeat it, the deeper it digs in. That's why the most dangerous voice in your life is not the one outside. It's the one inside that says, "You can't." Changing the way you talk to yourself isn't about forcing false positivity. It's about telling yourself the truth, a truth stronger than your fear. Because fear will lie to you. It will say, "You're not capable." Truth will say, "You're not there yet, but you can get there." That difference, between fear and truth, changes everything. Fear paralyzes. Truth empowers. Fear limits your vision. Truth expands it. Fear says, "What if you fail?" Truth says, "What if you rise?" When you change your self-talk, you stop living in reaction to fear and start living in alignment with potential. Here's what most people miss. The brain doesn't think in logic, it thinks in language. Your words become your lens. If you constantly say, "This is too hard," your brain searches for proof that it is. If you say, "I'll figure it out," your brain searches for solutions instead. That's how powerful language is. It tells your brain what to focus on. So, what are you telling yours to find? Every time you think "I can't," your brain stops looking for how. Every time you think "I can," your brain starts strategizing. You either shut down or open up the pathways to growth, not by chance but by choice. This is why awareness is everything. Listen to yourself throughout the day. When something goes wrong, what's your first response? Do you say, "Of course this happened to me"? Or do you say, "I can learn something here"? One keeps you small. The other keeps you moving. You can't control every circumstance, but you can control the story you tell yourself about it. When you tell yourself empowering stories, even pain becomes useful. When you tell yourself disempowering stories, even peace feels heavy. Start rewriting your story one line at a time. Instead of saying, "I always mess things up," say, "I'm learning how to handle this better." "I don't have what it takes." Say, "I'm building what it takes." "It's too late for me." Say, "I'm just getting started." "I failed again." Say, "I just found another way that doesn't work." These may seem like small shifts, but small shifts repeated daily create massive change. You're not just talking differently, you're teaching your mind how to interpret life differently. The goal isn't to silence your inner critic completely, it's to outnumber it. To make your voice of truth louder, stronger, and more consistent than your voice of doubt. Because here's something most people don't realize. Your mind believes the most repeated voice, not the most accurate one. If you repeat negativity more often than truth, your brain will accept negativity as fact. But if you repeat strength, focus, and resilience often enough, those become your new defaults. So repetition matters. Speak your strength daily. Don't wait for confidence to show up before you talk to yourself like a winner. Confidence grows from self-respect, and self-respect grows from consistent, empowering language. Tell yourself what you are becoming, not what you've been. Because who you've been isn't your destiny, it's your data. It's what's teaching you what to do differently next time. And when that old voice of self-doubt shows up, as it always will, don't fight it. Acknowledge it. Say, I see you, but you don't lead anymore. Then redirect your words toward growth. The more often you do this, the faster your mind starts trusting your new voice. You'll notice it during hard days. When stress hits, instead of collapsing into old habits, your mind will automatically start searching for strength. That's not luck. That's reprogramming. Changing your self-talk is emotional rewiring. You're shifting your brain's emotional center of gravity, from fear to focus, from insecurity to identity. You're teaching your subconscious that you are capable of carrying yourself through anything. It's time to stop waiting for the world to validate you and start validating yourself through language. Tell yourself you're proud, not just when you win, but when you try. Tell yourself you're capable, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Tell yourself you're enough, not because you're perfect, but because you're real, growing, and learning. That's what builds unshakable confidence. Confidence that's not dependent on praise, likes, or applause, but on self-acknowledgement. The most dangerous habit isn't laziness or procrastination. It's negative self-talk disguised as humility. Saying, I'm not good enough, doesn't make you humble. It makes you powerless. Humility isn't denying your strength. It's acknowledging that your strength is still developing. So speak like a builder. Speak like a creator. Speak like someone who's responsible for their own evolution. Because that's exactly what you are. When you change your language, you change your energy. And when your energy changes, your results follow. Every person you admire, every disciplined, grounded, confident individual, has mastered their internal language. They've built an inner dialogue that pushes them when things get hard, that calms them when things get chaotic, and that guides them when life gets unclear. You can do the same. It begins with awareness, it continues with repetition, and it solidifies through consistency. Start today. Take one negative phrase you use often, and retire it. Replace it with something that builds you. Do that enough times, and one day you'll notice something incredible. The voice that once tore you down now talks like a mentor. That's not magic. That's mastery. Remember, you are always listening to yourself. You are always being shaped by your words. You are always one sentence away from changing your direction. Speak truth. Speak strength. Speak vision. Because your life will rise, or fall, to the level of the language you use to describe it. You are capable. You are adaptable. You are unfinished. And that's your power. Thing 3. You can't grow in the same soil that grew your limitations. The mind is a seed, and every seed becomes a reflection of its soil. If the ground around you is dry, toxic, or neglected, even the strongest potential inside you will struggle to rise. Growth is not just about effort, it's about environment. No matter how determined you are, if you stay surrounded by the same conditions that created your struggles, you'll keep repeating them. Your environment is not just physical, it's mental, emotional, and energetic. It's the people you spend time with, the conversations you entertain, the habits you repeat, the spaces you inhabit. Everything around you either feeds your growth or suffocates it. There is no neutral ground. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings shape their mindset. You absorb energy, tone, language, and expectation from those around you. If you live among people who complain, you'll start to see problems everywhere. If you live among people who strive, you'll start to see possibilities instead. Your environment doesn't just reflect your attitude, it programs it. You've probably heard the saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's not cliché, it's a law of influence. Humans are wired to adapt to their tribe. If your circle normalizes mediocrity, you'll subconsciously shrink to fit in. But if your circle normalizes growth, excellence, and accountability, you'll rise without even realizing it. That's why growth often feels lonely at first, because evolution requires elevation and not everyone will climb with you. When you start changing, your old environment may resist. People will say you've changed and they'll be right. You're supposed to. But understand this, growth is not betrayal. Outgrowing people, habits, and spaces doesn't mean you've become better than them. It means you've become more aligned with your next level. Surround yourself with people, habits, and spaces that challenge your comfort, not reinforce it. Because comfort-based environments keep you stuck in small cycles. When everyone around you chooses ease, excuses, and emotional drama, those behaviors start to feel normal. But normal is not always healthy. Normal is just what's common. If your environment doesn't demand your growth, it will decay your potential. Audit your circle. Who speaks life into your goals? Who challenges your excuses? Who inspires you to stretch beyond your limits? And who drains your drive? These questions are not judgment, they're clarity. Because not everyone deserves equal access to your energy. Some people are anchors, heavy, stable, but keeping you still. Others are sails, light, directional, helping you move forward. You need to know which is which. Because even good-hearted people can still hold you back if they're not growing themselves. Your environment doesn't have to be loud to influence you. Sometimes it's subtle. A single pessimistic comment. A friend who never dreams bigger. A routine that never changes. These small influences chip away at your fire until you stop realizing how much of your strength has been dulled by familiarity. To change your environment, start with awareness. Look at your life as a landscape. Where do you feel energized? Where do you feel drained? Which spaces pull you into focus and which ones pull you into distraction? Your body already knows the answers. It feels the shift before your mind admits it. Growth requires pruning. You can't plant new habits without pulling out the old weeds. And sometimes those weeds are people, places, or patterns you've held onto for too long. It's painful to cut ties with comfort, but remember, comfort is rarely loyal to your potential. You must be willing to outgrow your environment even if it means walking alone for a while. Because in that solitude, you'll start attracting new energy, people and places that match your new vibration. You can't meet the next version of yourself while surrounded by the echo of your past. But changing your environment doesn't always mean abandoning everything. Sometimes it's about upgrading it. You can create growth in your current world by shifting how you engage with it. For example, turn your space into a reminder of your goals. Remove clutter, add focus cues, and create calm. Limit conversations that drain you and deepen those that challenge you. Replace noise with nourishment. Read more, scroll less, rest intentionally. Small changes in environment lead to big changes in energy. Your surroundings should serve your standards, not sabotage them. Every object, person, and routine in your life should have a purpose. To strengthen, to educate, or to inspire. If it does none of these, it's a distraction disguised as comfort. But here's a truth most people avoid. Your environment is a reflection of your standards. The people around you are often mirrors of your own energy. If you attract drama, it's because you tolerate it. If you attract growth, it's because you embody it. That's why changing your environment always begins with changing yourself. Raise your frequency, and your circle will naturally shift. When you stop gossiping, complainers will leave. When you start showing discipline, the lazy will drift away. When you begin to grow, those uninterested in growth will remove themselves. You won't even have to push them out. They'll feel the discomfort of your evolution and step away on their own. And though it may feel painful, it's not loss, it's alignment. You're not losing people, you're losing patterns. You're not walking away from relationships, you're walking toward readiness. But remember, the goal isn't to only surround yourself with people who agree with you, it's to surround yourself with people who challenge you. A real growth environment isn't built on constant praise. It's built on honest conversations, accountability, and shared elevation. The people you need most are the ones who push you when you hesitate, remind you of your worth when you forget, and call you out when you shrink. Growth environments don't always feel comfortable, and that's the point. They stretch you, pressure you, refine you. They make you earn your peace instead of settling for it. If your circle doesn't inspire you to level up, it's not a circle, it's a cage. Your environment is shaping you right now, whether you realize it or not. Every conversation, every habit, every space is either making you sharper or softer. You can't control every influence around you, but you can choose which ones to absorb. Start by asking yourself this. Does this person, place, or habit bring me closer to my potential, or keep me tied to my past? Your answer will tell you everything you need to know. Your environment is the silent architect of your destiny. You can have vision, discipline, and desire, but if you're planted in toxic soil, your growth will always be stunted. The greatest mistake people make is thinking they can outgrow an environment that keeps them small. You can't heal in a space that keeps reopening the wound. You can't evolve in a space that constantly reminds you of who you used to be. When you stay in a stagnant environment long enough, it begins to whisper a dangerous lie. This is just who you are. But that's not truth, that's conditioning. You've simply adapted to survive where you are, not to thrive where you're meant to be. And that's why changing your environment isn't just about rearranging your surroundings, it's about reclaiming your identity. Because the environment you tolerate will eventually shape the person you become. If you stay surrounded by small talk, your thoughts will shrink. If you live in constant noise, your intuition will fade. If your daily circle normalizes doubt, mediocrity, and complaint, your mind will slowly match their rhythm, not out of weakness but out of survival. Humans adapt to fit their environment. The question is, what are you adapting to? It's not easy to leave an environment that feels familiar, even when you know it's limiting you. Familiarity can feel safe even when it's suffocating. It takes courage to say, I love you but I can't stay here. I respect this version of my life, but I need to grow beyond it. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Growth demands new spaces, new air, new perspectives, new challenges. The same way a plant becomes root-bound in a small pot, your potential suffocates in environments that no longer stretch you. Ask yourself, when was the last time your environment challenged you to rise? When was the last time your circle made you feel inspired instead of comfortable? If it's been a while, it's time to make a change. Because growth doesn't just happen, it's cultivated. Start building a growth environment intentionally. Here's how. 1. Curate your circle consciously. Be deliberate about who gets your energy. Seek people who don't let you settle, who question your excuses and remind you of your capacity. You don't need people who make you feel good about staying the same. You need people who make you uncomfortable enough to evolve. Remember, real friends celebrate your growth even when it distances you from them. If someone feels threatened by your elevation, they were never aligned with your purpose, only your proximity. 2. Redesign your physical space. Your surroundings should reflect your goals, not your distractions. Clear the clutter, both literal and emotional. Create corners for peace and productivity. The energy of your environment should tell your mind, this is where progress happens. You can't expect mental clarity in chaotic surroundings. Even small shifts, a cleaner desk, a calmer bedroom, a space free from noise, can create mental discipline. Your outer order reinforces your inner order. 3. Filter your digital world. Your environment isn't limited to the physical world anymore, it's digital too. The accounts you follow, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, they're all shaping your perspective. Audit your online diet. Unfollow what drains your focus. Consume content that feeds your growth, not your comparison. Because the more digital noise you absorb, the harder it becomes to hear your own voice. 4. Create spaces of silence. Growth requires reflection, and reflection requires stillness. Every day, find pockets of silence, even 10 minutes of mental quiet, to reconnect with yourself. The world will keep shouting. Your environment won't automatically calm down. You must create that calm intentionally. Silence is where awareness blooms, where you realize what's working, what's not, and what needs to change. 5. Protect your energy with boundaries. Changing your environment isn't always about leaving. Sometimes it's about limiting. You can't control everyone around you, but you can control how much access they get. Boundaries are not walls, they're filters. They protect your peace so your growth can continue uninterrupted. You have to become the guardian of your energy. Because not everyone deserves a front row seat in your evolution. And here's a truth that few accept. Not everyone can come with you. Growth always requires separation. Some relationships are seasonal. They serve a chapter, not a lifetime. Some friendships are built on shared pain, not shared purpose. If your connection depends on your smallness, it will not survive your expansion. It's painful but necessary. Because evolution and attachment rarely coexist. You can either stay where you're accepted or go where you're meant to become. The courage to change your environment is the courage to honor your potential. But remember, the goal isn't to chase better people or perfect conditions. The goal is to align yourself with environments that pull out your best, where you can contribute, learn, and evolve. Growth isn't about superiority, it's about suitability. You don't need to be around higher people, just people who are hungry like you. If your environment feeds your purpose, your energy rises naturally. You'll find focus easier, your ideas clearer, your habits stronger. The right environment doesn't just support growth, it accelerates it. Because energy is contagious. You can't walk through fire and stay cold. You can't be surrounded by ambition and stay indifferent. You can't breathe in inspiration daily and remain the same. That's why protecting your environment is protecting your future. Even the most disciplined person will eventually break if their environment is built for distraction. The mind can fight only so long against its surroundings. So build your environment to match the person you're becoming, not the one you've been. If you want to rise, your space must rise with you. Here's a truth to live by. You don't adapt to your dreams adapt to your environment. If your environment is full of chaos, your dreams will become chaotic. If your environment is built on order, your dreams will take shape. If your environment encourages doubt, your dreams will die quietly. If your environment inspires belief, your dreams will multiply. Every major transformation in life begins with a shift in surroundings. Because new environments create new perspectives, and new perspectives create new behaviors. So if you feel stuck, stop blaming yourself. Start examining your soil. Maybe there's nothing wrong with your seed. Maybe it's just been planted in the wrong garden. Thing 4. Failure. The word alone carries weight, disappointment, frustration, and shame. For most people, it feels like the end. But in truth, failure is never the end. It's the beginning of understanding. The problem isn't failure itself, it's how we interpret it. Failure is a teacher, not a verdict. Yet most people treat it like a sentence, final, fatal, and defining. But if you study anyone who has ever achieved mastery, in art, sport, business, or life, you'll find one shared truth. They all failed repeatedly. They stumbled, doubted, and started over more times than anyone watching could count. The difference between winners and quitters isn't failure itself, it's response. Failure doesn't destroy you. Your reaction to failure does. Every time you fail, you face a choice. You can shrink, allowing fear, embarrassment, or guilt to take control, or you can study what happened, adjust, and try again with more precision. That's how you transform setbacks into skill. You see, failure is feedback. It's data. It's life's way of showing you what doesn't work so you can discover what does. But we've been conditioned to take it personally. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of saying, "This didn't work," we say, "I didn't work." Instead of analyzing the system, we attack the self. That's where most people stay stuck, in self-blame. They carry their failure like a label instead of a lesson. But the moment you separate your identity from your outcome, you gain power. You realize that failing doesn't make you a failure, it makes you a learner. You wouldn't call a scientist a failure for running 100 experiments before finding a cure. That's expected. Yet, in life, we expect perfection on the first try. That's not strength, that's ego. True strength is built through iteration, through the willingness to start again, smarter, sharper, and steadier. The most dangerous thing about failure is not the fall, it's the story you tell yourself when you're on the ground. When something breaks, do you say, "This proves I'm not enough"? Or do you say, This shows me what I must improve. The first story ends growth. The second begins mastery. Failure is not your enemy. It's your instructor, harsh, honest, but loyal. It shows you where your systems break, where your preparation was weak, where your patience ran thin. It teaches what success never could: humility, adaptability, and endurance. Learn from it, adapt from it, and move forward. That's how progress compounds. Every setback becomes an upgrade when you study it. Every mistake becomes a map when you dissect it. But most people don't fail forward. They fail emotionally. They let the pain of the moment blind them from the message in the lesson. The pain of failure is temporary. The paralysis from fear of failure can last forever. When you start seeing failure as information instead of identity, everything changes. You stop hiding from it. You start engaging with it. You realize that failure isn't proof of weakness. It's proof of effort. You only fail when you're trying to evolve. You can't fail at something you never attempt. Reframe failure in your mind. It's not an obstacle, it's a checkpoint. Every time you fail, you've moved further than those who never started. You're closer to success simply because you're collecting data. The path to mastery is littered with micro-failures. Each one refines you, hardens your mindset, strengthens your focus. When you fail and rise again, you build emotional endurance, a resilience that comfort could never teach. Think of the greatest inventions, discoveries, or personal achievements in history. Every one of them was born from failure. The airplane, the light bulb, the vaccine, the business that changed the world, all came from people who refused to let failure have the final word. They understood that failure wasn't a dead end. It was a detour to refinement. The only real failure is quitting before the lesson is learned. Because as long as you're willing to adapt, failure can't hold you. To change how you handle failure, start by changing your language around it. Don't say, "I failed." Say, "I tested something that didn't work." That simple shift transforms shame into strategy. It reminds your mind that failure is an event, not a label. Also, stop seeking perfection. Perfectionism is fear dressed as ambition. It's the ego's way of avoiding failure altogether, but it also avoids progress. The pursuit of perfection prevents practice, and practice is where growth lives. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be improving. Each time you fail, pause. Reflect. What did this teach me? What would I do differently next time? What system or mindset needs upgrading? If you can extract a single insight, the failure was worth it. Because the wisdom you earn from failing once can save you from failing 10 times in the future. Here's the truth. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the process of success. Every success story is built on a foundation of failed attempts that no one saw. The public sees the results, not the repetitions. You can't be fearless, but you can be brave. And bravery means acting despite the risk of failure. The moment you accept that failure is part of the journey, fear loses its power over you. Winners feel the same fear as everyone else. They just don't obey it. They know that the pain of trying and failing is temporary, but the pain of never trying lasts forever. Failure doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do after. Do you retreat and repeat the old pattern, or do you refine and return stronger? Every failure is an invitation to rise differently. It's easy to stay confident when everything goes right. But real confidence is born in the aftermath of failure, when you choose to believe again, rebuild again, and move again. That's when your spirit grows roots deep enough to handle any storm. The ones who thrive in life aren't those who fail less. They're those who recover faster. They don't take failure personally, they take it professionally. They study it, learn from it, and adjust their aim. If you can develop that mindset, the ability to fall, learn, and continue, you become unstoppable. Because no amount of external failure can break an internal will that refuses to stay down. Failure only wins when you stop showing up. So keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep moving. Because every fall strengthens the part of you that's meant to rise higher. Failure is not the end, it's the furnace. The place where weakness burns away and wisdom takes shape. And once you stop fearing the fire, you start forging yourself into something unbreakable. Failure doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. It strips away illusion, ego, and pretense until only truth remains. It shows you who you are when things fall apart. your patience, your grit, your belief in yourself. You don't really know your strength until failure tests it. Most people spend their lives running from failure, as if it's a monster that devours dreams. But the truth is, failure is the sculptor of all greatness. It doesn't take your potential away, it chisels it. Every time you fail, something false about you breaks off. A bit of fear, a bit of pride, a bit of doubt. What remains afterward is cleaner, sharper, and stronger. Failure is not meant to humiliate you, it's meant to educate you. The pain of failing is just your ego resisting growth. The lesson behind that pain is always valuable, if you stay still long enough to listen. The reason most people never rise higher is because they don't listen after they fall. They drown the lesson in emotion. They let shame speak louder than wisdom. They get so caught up in the sting of defeat that they miss the instruction hidden within it. If you want to change how you handle failure, you must first detach your worth from your outcomes. You are not your results. You are your resilience. Results can fluctuate, but resilience is forever. That's what defines who you are. The most successful people in every field understand this. They fail constantly, but they fail forward. Each failure becomes a brick in the foundation of their expertise. Every misstep refines their approach. They see failure not as proof of inadequacy, but as part of the process of mastery. Because mastery is built on thousands of small corrections, and correction only happens through feedback, through trying, through failing. You can't learn to walk without falling. You can't learn to speak without stumbling. You can't learn to lead, love, or live boldly without falling flat a few times. Failure is not a detour from growth, it's the only road there. But here's what separates the resilient from the regretful. Resilient people don't react to failure, they respond to it. Reaction is emotional. Response is intelligent. Reaction says, "This always happens to me." Response says, "What is this teaching me?" The moment you move from reaction to reflection, you turn failure into fuel. You can train this. Every time something doesn't go as planned, pause before judgment. Don't rush to label it as bad. Sit with it. Study it. Ask yourself, what was in my control here? What can I do differently next time? What pattern does this reveal about me? Then, most importantly, take one small action based on what you learned. That action is what transforms failure from pain into progress. Reflection without movement is just regret wearing a new name. Failure gives you 3 gifts if you're willing to receive them: clarity, character, and calibration. Clarity, because failure exposes what doesn't work. It removes illusion and leaves only truth. Character, because failure builds patience, humility, and inner toughness. Calibration, because failure fine-tunes your direction. It teaches precision. If you can collect those 3 gifts from every setback, you'll rise faster than most people ever will. But here's the catch. You can't collect those lessons if you're busy hiding your failure. Too many people conceal their losses out of shame, pretending they're okay while secretly breaking inside. But hiding your failure only delays your healing. Growth demands honesty, with yourself and with the process. The world teaches you to celebrate success publicly but mourn failure privately. But what if you started doing the opposite, learning openly without shame? What if failure stopped being taboo and became normal, necessary, respected? You'd stop fearing it. You'd stop pretending. You'd start experimenting more freely, and the more experiments you run, the faster you learn. When you stop seeing failure as a flaw and start seeing it as feedback, you unlock freedom. The freedom to try. The freedom to explore. The freedom to grow without guilt. And that freedom is where creativity and confidence thrive. Failure refines purpose too. It strips away what you don't care about enough to fight for. The things you're willing to fail for, those are your true passions. Because only what matters deeply will pull you back after disappointment. The moment you can say, "I failed but I still care," you found something real. That's the spark worth protecting. Think about this. No one remembers how many times you failed. They only remember that you didn't stop. Failure loses its power the moment you make persistence your identity. So make persistence your standard. Measure yourself not by your wins but by your willingness to keep trying. Because the truth is, success is just failure that lasted longer. There's a quiet kind of strength in people who failed often. You can see it in their eyes, calm, focused, unshaken. They've met disappointment and learned its language. They no longer fear loss because they've learned how to rise from it. They've realized that failure doesn't kill you, it prepares you. Every time you handle failure with patience, you harden your resilience. You teach your nervous system that falling is not fatal. The next time it happens, you recover faster, clearer, lighter. You begin to see failure as familiar terrain, not a battlefield but a training ground. And soon you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What will I learn when I do?" That mindset changes everything. To build that kind of strength, you must forgive yourself quickly. Shame keeps you stuck in the past. Forgiveness pulls you back into motion. Every second spent reliving what went wrong is energy stolen from what could go right. Let go of perfection. Let go of pride. Let go of the illusion that you're supposed to get it right the first time. No one does. Failure is proof that you're in motion, that you're testing, trying, and evolving. The only true failure is standing still while blaming the world for your stagnation. So the next time you fall, don't curse the ground, thank it. It's teaching you stability. The next time you lose, don't question your worth, question your strategy. The next time something breaks, don't say, "Why me?" Say, "Now what?" Because now what is the language of growth. Failure will visit you again and again, but each visit will hurt less because you'll no longer see it as punishment. You'll see it as preparation. The person who fears failure avoids life. The person who studies failure masters it. So study it. Respect it. Let it sharpen you. Thing 5. The need for validation is the fastest way to lose your direction. The moment you start living for applause, you stop living for alignment. It happens quietly, one small compromise at a time. You begin bending your truth to fit others' comfort, shrinking your voice to earn their acceptance, trading authenticity for approval. And over time, without even realizing it, you become a version of yourself that the world loves. But you don't. Approval feels rewarding at first. It gives you a temporary high, a sense of belonging, of worth, of being seen. But it's a fragile kind of happiness because it depends entirely on something you can't control, other people's opinions. And that means the moment they withdraw their approval, your peace collapses with it. Growth requires independence, not rebellion but inner authority. Independence doesn't mean rejecting others, it means trusting yourself. It's the quiet strength of knowing that your worth is not up for public debate. It's choosing to stand by your truth, even when no one claps for it. When you depend on approval, you hand your power away. Every compliment becomes a leash. Every criticism becomes a chain. You live trapped between other people's opinions, chasing one, running from the other, until you forget what you truly wanted in the first place. The deepest prison is not built of walls, but of other people's expectations. The truth is, you will never reach your highest potential if your self-worth is tied to external validation. Because growth requires risk, and risk invites disapproval. The more you evolve, the more you'll challenge what others find familiar. And not everyone will understand that. That's why every person who ever did something meaningful faced criticism, doubt, and misunderstanding. They had to choose between pleasing others and pursuing truth. Every time they chose truth, they lost approval but gained power. Stop asking, "Do they approve?" and start asking, "Does this align with who I want to become?" That single shift changes everything. Because when your compass points inward instead of outward, you stop getting lost in other people's maps. Most people spend their lives chasing validation from sources that will never be satisfied. Parents, peers, strangers online. They try to prove their worth by performing, pleasing, and pretending. But no amount of approval can heal the emptiness that comes from betraying yourself. The approval you seek externally is often the validation you've refused to give yourself internally. You want others to see your worth because you haven't fully accepted it yet. But the truth is, no one's approval will ever feel enough until you approve of yourself. And self-approval isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about finally believing you're enough as you are, even as you work to become more. When you no longer need validation, you gain clarity. You start doing things because they feel right, not because they look right. You start speaking truth even when it's unpopular. You stop performing and start living. And that's when growth truly begins. Because you can't evolve if you're constantly waiting for permission to do so. The need for approval often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, of judgment, of loneliness. But here's what most people don't realize. The fear of disapproval keeps you from becoming the person who no longer needs it. You can't learn independence without first facing rejection. Disapproval isn't the enemy, it's a test. Every time someone disagrees with your path, you're given a chance to strengthen your belief in it. Every time someone doubts your dream, you're invited to trust yourself deeper. It's easy to feel confident when everyone agrees with you. True confidence begins when they don't. You have to learn to walk through disapproval without losing your direction. To hold your head high even when your decisions are misunderstood. To keep going when applause turns to silence. Because that silence, that space where validation fades, is where self-trust is born. Growth requires you to stop performing for approval and start practicing alignment. Alignment means choosing what's right for your evolution, even when it costs you acceptance. It's saying, I'd rather be true and alone than fake and admired. At first, it will hurt. You'll feel the sting of losing approval you once depended on. But over time, you'll realize you never really lost anything. You just stopped renting your worth from others. And what replaces that need is something far stronger: inner peace. When you no longer seek validation, you begin creating from authenticity. Your words carry more truth, your actions carry more conviction, and your presence carries more power. You stop chasing energy and start becoming it. That's when people start noticing, not because you're trying to impress them, but because truth naturally commands respect. Ironically, when you stop needing validation, you start attracting genuine connection. Because authenticity resonates. People may not always agree with you, but they'll trust you, because you're real. The need for approval is a form of emotional dependency, and dependency always limits freedom. It makes you cautious, deluded, predictable. But independence makes you clear, bold, magnetic. When you stop asking for permission to be yourself, you start discovering who you really are. So ask yourself, who are you performing for? Whose opinion still holds your peace hostage? Whose voice echoes louder than your intuition? Be honest, because awareness is the beginning of freedom. You can't silence every critic, but you can choose whose words get access to your soul. And remember, even your greatest supporters won't always understand your evolution. That's okay. You're not growing to be understood, you're growing to be whole. Your life doesn't need to make sense to others, it only needs to make peace within you. Every step toward independence is a step away from insecurity. Every time you choose self-approval over external validation, your foundation strengthens. You begin to move differently, quieter, clearer, calmer. That's when you realize, you never needed their approval to begin with. You just needed to stop doubting your own. When you stop living for validation, you start living for truth. That's the shift that separates those who merely exist from those who evolve. Because approval is a leash, polished, comfortable, invisible, but a leash nonetheless. The moment you depend on it, you hand over your freedom. The moment you release it, you reclaim your life. Every act of self-betrayal begins with the need for approval. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you dim your voice to avoid conflict, every time you shrink to fit the room, you trade a piece of your authenticity for acceptance. And those trades accumulate until you wake up one day realizing you've been living as a version of yourself designed for everyone but you. It takes courage to break that cycle, because the cost of approval withdrawal is solitude. When you stop performing, you will lose people. The ones who only liked your compliance will disappear. The ones who only stayed for comfort will fall away. But what remains will be real, people who value your truth, not your performance. Understand this, authenticity filters your circle. Approval expands it, but in all the wrong directions. Approval seeking gathers audiences. Authenticity gathers alignment. When you rely on approval, your emotions become volatile, rising and falling with every compliment or critique. But when you build self-approval, your emotions stabilize. You stop being addicted to validation highs and you stop being shattered by rejection lows. You live centered. You no longer chase being liked. You choose being respected, by yourself first. True growth is not rebellion against others. It's responsibility for yourself. It's the ability to say, I don't need your permission to be who I am. not from defiance but from deep self-knowledge. Approval seeking is often disguised as politeness, humility, or care. But if your kindness costs you authenticity, it's no longer kindness, it's self-erasure. There's a difference between being considerate and being controlled. There's a difference between respect and reliance. There's a difference between connection and validation. When you stop needing everyone to like you, you create space for the right ones to love you. And those who can't handle your truth? They were never your audience, they were your lesson. The path to independence is paved with moments of misunderstanding. There will be days when you feel unseen, unsupported, or even judged for your choices. But those moments are not signs you're on the wrong path. They're signs you've stopped following everyone else's. Approval is seductive because it feels safe. You tell yourself, if they accept me, I belong. But belonging built on performance is not real, it's conditional. It demands you hide your edges to stay loved. But love that requires you to disappear is not love, it's dependency. When you build internal approval, you learn to belong to yourself first. You stop chasing places that tolerate you and start creating spaces that celebrate you. To change your need for approval, you must strengthen your internal validation system. Here's how. 1. Practice self-recognition. Don't wait for others to acknowledge your progress. Notice it yourself. At the end of each day, ask, what did I do right today? What did I learn? What did I overcome? This simple act rewires your brain to seek inner acknowledgement instead of external validation. 2. Redefine criticism. Not every disapproval is rejection. Sometimes it's redirection. When people criticize you, filter it, extract what's useful, discard what's noise. You don't have to defend your every choice. You only have to stay committed to your why. Remember, criticism doesn't define your worth, it reveals others' limits. Don't internalize projections that don't belong to you. 3. Learn to sit in disapproval without losing peace. Silence is uncomfortable when you're used to applause. But that silence is where self-respect grows. Learn to stay calm when people disagree. Growth often requires standing alone in rooms that once validated you. The moment you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you begin experiencing the peace that comes with alignment. 4. Build a habit of self-trust. Approval addiction comes from doubt, the belief that others know better than you. But no one lives inside your mind, your purpose, your pain. They can advise, but they can't decide. The only way to build self-trust is through repetition. Every time you follow your intuition, even in small ways, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. Over time, that becomes confidence that doesn't need permission to exist. 5. Accept that not everyone will understand your journey. And that's okay, it's not their job to. Some people are chapters, not constants. Their role was to teach you what it feels like to depend too much on approval, so you could learn to outgrow it. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge you. Let them leave. None of it can touch the truth that you're walking your own path. The need for approval fades when the desire for purpose becomes stronger. You start caring less about who's watching and more about who you're becoming. You stop performing for eyes and start preparing for impact. And here's the irony, the moment you stop chasing approval, you start attracting respect. Because authenticity carries a quiet power that validation can't mimic. People can sense when you're grounded in your own truth. They can feel when you've stopped chasing them and started choosing yourself. You don't need to be loud about it. True independence doesn't need to announce itself. It moves differently, calm, centered, unapologetic. You can still care about others without needing their permission to exist. You can still love deeply without losing yourself. You can still listen, learn, and grow, but from choice, not from fear of rejection. When you stop depending on approval, you unlock one of the rarest forms of freedom, peace with your own reflection. You stop seeking to be seen because you finally see yourself. The moment you no longer crave applause, your energy changes. You move with conviction. You act faster. You think clearer. You create without hesitation. Because when no one else's opinion defines you, you stop being distracted by noise and start being guided by purpose. Approval is borrowed confidence. Independence is built confidence. And built confidence lasts, because it's forged through fire, solitude, and self-belief. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you rewrite your self-image. You're no longer the person who waits for permission. You become the one who leads, even if no one follows. And that's the moment your power becomes untouchable. Because the truth is, the crowd's applause is fleeting. It fades as soon as you stop performing. But self-respect, that stays. It follows you everywhere. It doesn't need witnesses, and it doesn't disappear in silence. Thing 6. You don't lack time, you leak focus. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of energy, mental, emotional, and physical. How you spend it determines the quality of your life. Yet most people move through their day reacting instead of directing, allowing everyone and everything to drain their energy until they collapse at night wondering where the day went. The truth is, you don't need more hours in the day, you need better energy management. Because growth doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing what matters with full presence. Energy is your most valuable resource. More than time, more than money, more than opportunity. Because without energy, nothing else works. You can have goals, dreams, even discipline, but without the energy to execute, everything remains potential. And here's the paradox. The world will constantly try to convince you that your energy is infinite. Work more, scroll more, say yes more. But energy is not infinite. It's a currency, and every interaction, decision, and distraction is a transaction. Growth requires boundaries, mental, emotional, and digital. Because if you don't guard your energy, the world will spend it for you. People will drain it with their chaos. Technology will fragment it with its noise. Old habits will waste it through repetition. Protecting your energy doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world. It means engaging with it on your terms. It's not about control, it's about clarity. Knowing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. Start by understanding this truth. Energy flows where focus goes. Whatever you give your attention to, expands. If you constantly focus on problems, negativity, or comparison, your energy will spiral downward. If you focus on progress, gratitude, and purpose, your energy compounds. The way you feel isn't random, it's a reflection of where your energy is leaking. Ask yourself right now, what people or habits leave me feeling drained? What environments energize me versus exhaust me? What thoughts take the most mental space but give me the least return? Answering these questions isn't optional if you want to grow. It's essential. Because awareness is the first step to protection. You need to treat your energy like an investment portfolio. Every day you decide where to spend it, and not every investment pays back. Some conversations bring peace, others steal it. Some habits recharge you, others drain you. Some people lift your vibration, others pull you back into noise. Stop spending energy on what doesn't grow you. Protect your energy like a resource. Spend it intentionally, not emotionally. Because emotional spending is the silent killer of progress. It looks like reacting to every message, arguing every opinion, explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, or replaying scenarios that already ended. Every emotional reaction costs energy. And the more you react, the less you create. Learning to manage energy begins with one discipline: pause before response. Don't rush to reply to everything that provokes you. Most situations don't require your immediate reaction. They require your composure. Protecting your energy often means saying nothing at all. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you conserve power. You stop wasting energy on noise that doesn't deserve it. Another major energy leak is mental clutter. Overthinking, second-guessing, and worrying about things you can't control drain more energy than physical labor. The mind consumes power constantly, even when idle. That's why mental boundaries matter as much as physical ones. Start setting limits on what your mind is allowed to obsess over. If it's out of your control, it's out of your energy budget. If it doesn't align with your growth, it doesn't deserve your focus. Emotional boundaries are next. You don't owe everyone emotional access. Just because someone demands your attention doesn't mean they're entitled to your peace. You can love people and still protect your energy from their chaos. Remember, empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion. You can care deeply without carrying everything. Digital boundaries might be the hardest, because the modern world thrives on stealing your attention. Every notification, every scroll, every endless feed is designed to keep you distracted and drained. You don't realize it, but every micro-interruption, every time you pick up your phone, switch tabs, or check a message, costs mental energy. And those small leaks accumulate into burnout. Start managing your digital space like sacred ground. Turn off notifications that don't matter. Set time blocks for focus. Unfollow content that keeps you comparing instead of creating. Reclaim your digital peace. Because the more scattered your attention, the weaker your energy. The more focused your attention, the stronger your influence. Energy management isn't about doing less. It's about doing right. It's about alignment over activity. You could work 12 hours a day in chaos and accomplish less than someone who works 4 hours in alignment. That's because direction amplifies energy. Distraction dilutes it. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to flow smarter. Energy is meant to be cycled, not hoarded or wasted. You recharge by engaging in things that refill your spirit. Rest, silence, nature, learning, meaningful conversation. These aren't luxuries, they're maintenance. You don't wait until your body collapses to rest, so don't wait until your spirit breaks to recharge. Rest isn't laziness, it's recalibration. Every time you rest intentionally, you're restoring the clarity needed for execution. Fatigue makes you sloppy, clarity makes you sharp. Managing energy also means managing emotion. Notice how your energy shifts depending on your emotional state. Anger burns it. Gratitude multiplies it. Fear drains it. Focus refines it. Emotions are energy signals. They tell you what you're feeding. Negative emotions often indicate you're overinvested in something outside your control. Positive emotions signal alignment. When you start managing your emotions intentionally, by breathing, journaling, or meditating before reacting, you conserve energy that would have been wasted on chaos. And here's the truth. Most burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much of what doesn't matter. You're not tired because you worked hard. You're tired because you're overinvested in things that don't return peace. Change that. Every morning, ask yourself, where will my energy go today? Who deserves it? What actions align with my long-term growth? And every night, reflect. Where did my energy actually go? Was it spent wisely or emotionally? Over time, this simple practice rewires your awareness. You start noticing the leaks before they drain you. You begin to see how many things you used to react to now pass through you quietly. Not because you stopped caring, but because you learned the difference between attention and attachment. Energy management isn't about control, it's about conservation. It's knowing when to engage, when to detach, and when to rest. Because not everything deserves your energy, and when you finally understand that, you become unstoppable. Energy management is not just about preservation, it's about precision. It's the art of knowing what truly moves you forward and what simply keeps you busy. Most people confuse exhaustion with achievement. They wear tiredness like a badge of honor, as if being drained means they're doing something meaningful. But real growth doesn't come from depletion, it comes from direction. You can do 1,000 things and still feel empty if none of them are aligned with your purpose. But you can do 3 things in deep focus and feel alive, because you spent your energy where it matters. This is the quiet truth. Your life doesn't expand by doing more, it expands by managing better. You don't need to grind harder, you need to guide smarter. When you start managing your energy consciously, you begin to realize how much of your fatigue was self-inflicted. You weren't tired from effort, you were tired from noise. From trying to please everyone, from multitasking meaningless things, from fighting battles that didn't deserve you. Your energy is sacred. Every moment you spend is a vote for the life you're creating. Spend it wisely. Here's a principle to remember. Whatever drains you is teaching you. If someone constantly exhausts you, they're teaching you about boundaries. If a routine makes you feel dull, it's teaching you about stagnation. If a habit leaves you empty, it's teaching you what to release. If a goal excites you but scares you, it's teaching you where your growth lies. Every drain reveals a direction. Pay attention. Energy management isn't passive, it's intentional. You must design how your energy flows each day. Think of your energy like water, it can nourish or flood. Without structure, it spills into everything. With clarity, it sustains life. Start designing your day around energy, not just time. Ask yourself, When do I feel most focused? When do I feel most creative? When do I feel most tired? Build your day around those rhythms instead of forcing productivity into exhaustion. Do your hardest work when your energy is highest. Rest deeply when it's lowest. Respect your natural cycles. They are signals, not weaknesses. One of the most powerful ways to protect energy is to simplify your inputs. Every decision costs energy, even small ones. That's why disciplined people appear calm. They've eliminated decision clutter. They don't waste energy on the trivial. Their energy is reserved for the meaningful. Simplify your life. Simplify your routine. Simplify your relationships. Complexity consumes energy. Clarity conserves it. The people who achieve the most often seem effortless not because they're superhuman, but because they've mastered energy efficiency. They don't rush, they flow. They don't react, they respond. They don't try to do everything, they do what aligns. If you want to grow, you must also learn the discipline of energy detachment. That means letting go of what's not yours to fix. You can't save everyone. You can't solve every problem. You can't heal those who refuse to help themselves. Compassion without limits becomes chaos. Your energy is not charity. It's currency, and not everyone has earned it. You owe no one constant access to your peace. Protect your space without guilt. You can love people and still guard your energy fiercely. In fact, that's the healthiest form of love, one that doesn't sacrifice self-respect. And remember, not every conflict deserves your clarity. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Not every argument deserves your voice. Maturity is learning that silence can be more powerful than explanation. Protecting your energy also means protecting your mental diet. What you consume daily, conversations, content, media, shapes your frequency. Your attention is constantly being trained, even when you think you're resting. Ask yourself, does this feed my focus or fragment it? If it drains your focus, it's not entertainment, it's erosion. Set digital boundaries like your future depends on it, because it does. The human brain was never built to absorb this much stimulation. Constant input creates constant fatigue. Start reclaiming your stillness. Turn off notifications. Spend mornings in silence. Choose presence over pixels. When you stop giving away your energy to screens, you start giving it back to yourself. But energy management isn't just defense, it's also offense. You have to recharge actively. You can't pour from an empty source. You refill your energy through intentional stillness, meaningful solitude, and nourishing connection. Spend time in environments that breathe life into you: nature, music, reading, quiet reflection. These are not escapes from growth. They are the soil that sustains it. When you start protecting your energy, you'll notice something profound. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop feeling scattered. You stop craving noise. You start craving clarity. You start moving slower but deeper, and every action carries more power. You'll also begin to outgrow certain patterns. You'll stop chasing closure that costs peace. You'll stop explaining your boundaries. You'll stop apologizing for needing space. That's not coldness, that's awareness. Because awareness allows you to see energy for what it truly is, your life force. Every leak, every drain, every unnecessary distraction is a theft of potential. When you manage your energy properly, you start living in intensity, not urgency. Urgency is panic. Intensity is purpose. Urgency burns you out. Intensity builds you up. Intensity means being fully present in what you do, not multitasking, not rushing, but immersing. You give your all, but you don't give it to everything. If you want to become unstoppable, you must learn to move from reaction to regulation. Energy mastery means you no longer let the external world decide your internal state. Someone else's chaos doesn't pull you off balance. A bad day doesn't dictate your vibration. That's emotional sovereignty, and it's the highest form of energy management. Your energy is your presence. When it's fragmented, people feel confusion. When it's calm, people feel power. The most magnetic people on earth aren't the loudest or busiest. They're the ones whose energy is centered, consistent, grounded. And that's what you should aim for, a life where your energy speaks before you do. So every morning remind yourself, my energy is sacred. I choose where it goes. I choose who receives it. I spend it only where it grows. That's your mantra for growth. Because when you protect your energy, you protect your potential. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop leaking power through noise and start channeling it into purpose. You stop moving aimlessly and start moving efficiently. And slowly you begin to realize focus is freedom. The more you master your energy, the more control you have over your life. Not control over circumstances, control over self. And that's the difference between surviving and evolving. The ones who thrive aren't the ones who have the most time, they're the ones who know how to spend their energy. Protect it, direct it, recharge it. Because energy is your life, and when you master it, everything else falls into place. Thing 7. Pain will visit you, but suffering is optional. That's a truth most people resist because pain feels personal. It feels unfair, heavy, and permanent when you're in it. But pain itself is not the enemy, it's a messenger. It's the body's alarm system and the mind's teacher. It arrives not to punish you but to prepare you. You can't live without pain. It will find you through loss, rejection, failure, and change. But you can choose how you respond to it, and that choice is what separates growth from suffering. Suffering begins when you resist pain, when you attach identity to it, when you replay it instead of learning from it. Growth begins when you look pain in the eye and say, "You're not here to break me, you're here to build me." You can use pain to harden your walls or sharpen your will. One turns you bitter, the other turns you powerful. Most people respond to pain by closing off. They shut down their heart, numb their emotions, and try to outrun what hurts. But running from pain only gives it power. What you avoid controls you. What you confront transforms you. When you face pain consciously, you start realizing it's not there to destroy your peace, it's there to redefine it. Pain shows you what truly matters. It burns away illusion. It humbles ego. It strips you of the superficial and leaves you with what's real. Every scar you carry is a map, evidence of survival, proof of resilience. But only if you let it teach you. Otherwise, it becomes an anchor, keeping you tied to the moment you refuse to release. The first step to changing your reaction to pain is to stop labeling it as punishment. Pain isn't proof that life is unfair. It's proof that you're alive, that you're stretching, that you're evolving. Growth hurts because expansion demands breaking what once felt safe. Think about it. Every transformation begins with discomfort. The muscle must tear to grow stronger. The mind must challenge its old beliefs to create new ones. The heart must break open to deepen compassion. Pain is not a setback, it's a signal of change. But to learn from pain, you must stop reacting and start responding. A reaction is emotional, immediate, defensive, impulsive. A response is intentional, calm, observant, curious. When pain arrives, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Ask, "What are you trying to show me?" That single question shifts your energy from victim to student. Because pain always carries a lesson. Sometimes it's teaching you boundaries. Sometimes it's teaching you patience. Sometimes it's teaching you strength. But it's always teaching. If you don't listen, it will repeat the lesson until you do. Life is generous like that. It keeps giving you the same pain in new disguises until you finally evolve. Every time you face difficulty with calm and intention, your inner power expands. That's not poetic, it's practical. Calmness is not weakness, it's control. It's the refusal to let chaos own your peace. The next time pain hits, remind yourself, this is not happening to me, it's happening for me. Not in a cliché way, but in a conscious one. For me, meaning for my growth, my awareness, my emotional evolution. Every storm reveals the strength of your foundation. When life shakes you, it's showing you where you still depend too much on things outside your control, people, expectations, outcomes. Pain strips that away. It forces you inward. It reminds you that your true anchor isn't in others but in yourself. When you stop fearing pain, you start mastering it. Pain becomes a form of feedback, an internal compass telling you where alignment is missing. Emotional pain shows you where you're still attached. Mental pain shows you where belief needs updating. Physical pain shows you where balance needs restoring. Pain, when processed consciously, becomes wisdom. It teaches you discernment, when to fight, when to let go, when to rest. It teaches compassion, Because once you've been hurt deeply, you understand others more gently. You can't fake emotional depth. It's carved by pain. But that depth is a gift. It makes you capable of empathy, creativity, leadership, and purpose. People who've never faced pain often lack understanding. People who've faced it and healed carry presence. They walk lighter but stronger, not because life got easier but because they learned how to stay centered when it wasn't. Pain reveals your relationship with yourself. Do you abandon yourself when you're hurting, or do you hold yourself through it? Most people know how to comfort others but not themselves. They look outward for soothing, forgetting that the most powerful healing begins inward, through patience, through reflection, through self-kindness. You don't have to fix pain immediately. You just have to face it honestly. Healing isn't about speed, it's about honesty. It's sitting with the ache until understanding replaces resistance. Don't confuse emotional avoidance with strength. Pretending you're fine isn't power, it's delay. True strength is letting yourself feel fully and still choosing to keep going. Pain is not your identity, it's an experience. Don't wear it like a name tag. Let it pass through you, not live in you. When you learn to process pain instead of personalizing it, something profound happens. It starts losing its power. It stops triggering your old wounds and starts sharpening your awareness. You realize that the same pain that once broke you is now the reason you stand taller. Because here's the secret. Pain isn't trying to defeat you, it's trying to direct you. It's redirecting your focus toward what truly matters. It's removing what's fake. It's recalibrating your strength. It's upgrading your capacity for patience, empathy, and courage. And once you understand that, you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" What now is the language of resilience. It's the mindset of those who no longer crumble under pain but evolve through it. Every challenge that hurts you today is shaping the endurance you'll need tomorrow. Every heartbreak is expanding your emotional intelligence. Every setback is building your spiritual muscle. Pain will visit again, that's guaranteed. But this time you'll meet it differently. You won't panic. You won't numb. You won't lash out. You'll breathe, observe, and respond. Because you've learned something powerful. Pain is not a threat, it's a teacher in disguise. Pain doesn't always arrive to destroy you. Sometimes it comes to refine you. It strips away everything false until only truth remains. That's why pain feels sharp. It's cutting away the parts of you that can't continue to the next level. But here's the thing about pain. It demands your attention. It doesn't whisper, it roars. It forces you to stop, to confront, to reflect. Most people see that interruption as punishment, but what if it's guidance? What if pain pauses your life not to hurt you but to reroute you? When pain enters your life, it's often life's way of saying, something here is out of alignment. Slow down and listen. But we rarely do. Instead, we rush to escape. We bury the ache under distractions, scrolling, overworking, pretending. We try to heal by ignoring. But ignoring pain doesn't heal it. It hides it. And what's hidden grows heavier over time. Unprocessed pain doesn't disappear. It mutates. It turns into anger, fatigue, bitterness, anxiety. You start reacting to small things with big emotions because the old wounds beneath haven't been acknowledged. So the first step to transforming pain is acceptance. Not approval, but awareness. Saying, this hurts, but I'm willing to understand it. That's emotional maturity. When you resist pain, you multiply it. But when you accept it, you neutralize it. Acceptance doesn't remove the ache instantly, it removes the extra suffering created by denial. Pain becomes lighter when you stop fighting it. The next step is interpretation. Pain has meaning, but not the one you think. Most people interpret pain as loss. This shouldn't have happened. But pain is rarely random. It's revealing something. Maybe it's showing you an attachment that's draining you. Maybe it's revealing a truth you've been avoiding. Maybe it's inviting you to build strength where weakness hides. Every pain carries a question. What is this trying to teach me? When you start seeing pain as information rather than injustice, you begin to rise from it faster. Pain transforms from something that breaks you to something that builds you. And that's the essence of resilience, the ability to extract wisdom from what hurts. Resilience doesn't mean pain disappears. It means pain no longer controls your identity. It means you can experience heartbreak without hating yourself, loss without losing yourself, and failure without abandoning your belief in yourself. That's power, not the power to avoid pain, but the power to transform it. Pain is part of every meaningful pursuit. The artist feels it when they can't express what they see. The athlete feels it when their body breaks under effort. The dreamer feels it when the world doubts their vision. But that pain, that ache, is the birthplace of greatness. Because pain is proof that you're stretching beyond what you once thought was possible. There are two kinds of pain in life: pain that breaks you and pain that builds you. The difference lies in your reaction. If you see it as cruelty, it hardens you. If you see it as curriculum, it strengthens you. You can use pain to harden your walls or sharpen your will. The first response says, "I'll never let anyone in again." The second says, "I'll become strong enough to stay open." One leads to isolation. The other leads to evolution. Pain is inevitable. Bitterness is optional. Bitterness is what happens when you hold on to pain longer than necessary. It's when you replay the story instead of rewriting it. Healing doesn't mean the past never happened. It means it no longer has the power to shape who you are becoming. That's why forgiveness is one of the most powerful forms of energy release. Not because others deserve it, but because you do. Forgiveness isn't about excusing pain. It's about freeing yourself from it. When you stop carrying your wounds like identity, you start carrying them like wisdom. You begin to see the purpose in what once felt pointless, the strength in what once felt senseless, the clarity in what once felt cruel. Pain clarifies priorities. It humbles you. It deepens gratitude. After pain, you start appreciating peace differently. You stop taking calm moments for granted. You stop chasing distractions. You stop needing validation. Because pain simplified you, it burned away what wasn't essential. In the end, pain gives you two gifts: depth and direction. Depth allows you to feel more deeply, connect more honestly, and live more consciously. Direction helps you recognize what deserves your energy and what doesn't. People who have walked through deep pain often carry quiet strength. They don't boast about endurance, they embody it. They've faced their darkness and learned that light is not something you find, it's something you create. When pain visits again, and it will, greet it differently. Don't panic. Don't personalize. Observe. Ask, where is this guiding me? Sometimes pain guides you inward, toward self-work, healing, reflection. Sometimes pain guides you outward, toward new purpose, new people, new paths. Sometimes it does both, but it always guides. And when you walk through it with awareness, you start noticing something extraordinary. Pain stops being punishment. It becomes power. You start building emotional endurance, the ability to feel deeply without losing balance. Pain still hurts, but it doesn't paralyze you. You can cry and still move. You can grieve and still grow. You can feel pain and still choose peace. That's mastery. Pain will visit again, not because life is cruel, but because life is real. You can't build strength in theory. You can't grow resilience from comfort. Pain is the weight that builds your emotional muscle. So the next time life tests you, remember, this is not the end, it's training. You're being stretched, not shattered. Molded, not punished. Don't run. Don't resist. Respond. Breathe. Reflect. Realign. And as you do, notice what happens inside you, the shift from chaos to clarity, the space between reaction and response, the realization that you've been through worse and survived. That's the birth of unshakable confidence, not the arrogance that says, "I'll never fall again," but the quiet strength that whispers, "Even if I do, I know how to rise." Pain doesn't end you, it introduces you to your truest self. Because every layer of comfort that pain strips away reveals a deeper layer of courage beneath. And when you've learned to stand calmly inside your storms, when you've learned to find meaning inside your wounds, when you've learned to breathe through the ache without breaking, that's when you become untouchable. Pain will still visit, but it will no longer control the room. You'll look it in the eye, smile, and say, "I know why you're here. Let's get to work." Because that's what mastery over pain really means. Not avoidance, not denial, but partnership. You no longer fight pain, you evolve with it. And every time you do, your inner power expands. Because strength isn't built in the absence of pain, It's built in the presence of it, one conscious breath, one calm choice, one quiet moment of endurance at a time. So the next time life hurts, don't run from it. Walk through it. Listen to it. Learn from it. Because inside that pain lies a gift, a piece of wisdom you can't earn any other way. And when you find it, you'll realize something profound. Pain never wanted to break you. It wanted to introduce you to the version of yourself that no comfort could ever create. Thing 8. Growth isn't fast, it's consistent. Yet we live in a world that worships speed. Everything around you screams now, quick results, instant success, immediate gratification. You scroll through 1,000 highlight reels a day and begin to believe that progress should look like a straight line. But the truth is, real growth doesn't happen in sudden leaps. It happens in steady, invisible layers, built through time, patience, and repetition. The world has taught you to chase acceleration. Life, however, rewards endurance. The people who truly evolve aren't the ones who sprint ahead for a season. They're the ones who keep walking forward when no one's clapping. Stop rushing results. Because when you rush, you skip the lessons that make results sustainable. Quick success builds ego. Slow growth builds character. One fades, the other compounds. Think of a seed, buried beneath the soil, unseen. For weeks, maybe months, nothing appears to happen. But beneath the surface, roots are forming, strong, deep, anchoring for what's to come. Growth always begins underground, in silence, in patience. That's how your evolution works too. You may not see visible change every day, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. Every disciplined choice, every act of consistency, every moment you stay true when it would have been easier to quit, that's a root forming. That's foundation. Slow progress builds strong foundations. Fast progress builds fragile ones. When you rush to the result, you cheat yourself of the resilience required to hold it. That's why so many people rise quickly and crumble faster. They didn't build the patience to sustain success. They learned speed, not stability. Redefine time as your ally, not your enemy. Because time isn't against you, it's working for you. Every day you stay consistent is a small deposit into your future. Every hour of discipline, every moment of focus, every sacrifice compounds quietly. Most people quit right before their compounding begins. They expect exponential growth in linear time, forgetting that most transformations look like nothing right before they look like everything. That's the curve of mastery, invisible at first, undeniable later. Patience doesn't mean waiting passively. It means working persistently while trusting the process. You show up daily knowing that consistency compounds. You don't plant today and harvest tomorrow. You nurture. You water. You protect. Time tests everything. Your patience, your priorities, your perseverance. Those who pass the test aren't the ones who move the fastest. They're the ones who move with faith. When you rush growth, you create pressure. When you flow with time, you create power. Your relationship with time reveals your maturity. The impatient want everything now. The wise understand that not yet doesn't mean never. It just means keep going. Because time is not delaying you, it's developing you. You're not behind. You're becoming. You're not late. You're being prepared. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not wasted time. It's training time. Every season of waiting has a purpose. Waiting teaches endurance. Endurance teaches strength. Strength builds capacity, and capacity determines how much success you can sustain. You can't rush wisdom. You can't fast forward healing. You can't compress mastery. Every level requires time to settle in your bones. There's a reason why shortcuts rarely last, because they skip the struggle that shapes your stability. The process is the protection. The time it takes is what makes it real. When you start honoring time, you stop comparing timelines. You stop looking left and right at how fast others are growing, earning, or succeeding. You realize that your journey is calibrated differently, not slower, just deeper. Comparison is impatience in disguise. It tricks you into thinking you're falling behind when, in truth, you're right on time for your own growth. Everyone's clock runs differently. Some bloom early, some bloom late, but all who stay consistent eventually bloom. The problem isn't time, it's your relationship with it. You treat time like an opponent to outrun instead of a partner to align with. But time is neutral. It's not your enemy or your savior, it's your mirror. It reflects your discipline, your priorities, your patience. You say you don't have time, but what you really mean is, I haven't prioritized my energy. Because time isn't lacking, it's leaking. When you learn to respect time, it begins to respect you. It starts working with you. Suddenly, your days feel longer, your work feels smoother, your results feel more organic. Because you've stopped fighting the clock and started flowing with it. The most powerful people on earth aren't the ones who have mastered speed, they've mastered rhythm. They know when to push, when to pause, when to recover, when to reflect. That rhythm with time becomes their advantage. Impatience leads to burnout. Balance leads to longevity. You have to learn to trust the season you're in. Every phase has purpose. There are seasons for planting, seasons for pruning, seasons for growing, and seasons for rest. Each one is necessary. If you try to harvest in a planting season, you'll come up empty. So stop rushing to the next chapter. You'll miss the wisdom in this one. You might think nothing is happening right now, but that's what it always looks like right before a breakthrough. Silence before the storm. Stillness before expansion. Be patient with time, but persistent with effort. That's the combination that creates miracles. And remember this, time doesn't owe you results, it rewards your repetition. Every day you show up is a vote for your future. Every moment you resist distraction is another layer of strength being built. The results may not show immediately, but they're accumulating quietly behind the scenes, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The truth is, fast success satisfies your ego, but slow success satisfies your soul. Because when you earn something slowly, you understand its value. You protect it. You respect it. You build a relationship with it. Time is not your enemy. It's your greatest ally, if you stop fighting it and start learning from it. The question isn't, how fast can I get there? The real question is, how deeply can I grow while I do? Because what compounds slowly lasts forever. Time is the most patient teacher you'll ever meet, but also the most honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't rush. It doesn't forget. It simply reflects what you invest in it. The time you spend wisely compounds. The time you waste quietly disappears. And the difference between the two is not in how much you have, it's in how intentionally you use it. We all get the same 24 hours, but not the same outcomes. Because the truth is, people don't run out of time, they run out of focus. They scatter their hours across distractions, impulses, and instant gratification. They call it being busy, but busyness without direction is just a slow drain disguised as effort. You can't master your life until you master your relationship with time. Most people treat time like a thief, something that steals their youth, their opportunities, their dreams. But time isn't stealing from you. It's offering you a deal: consistency for compound growth, discipline for depth, patience for power. The problem is, we often want the harvest before we've planted the seeds. We want the results before we've built the foundation. We want the outcome without the hours. But time doesn't work like that. Time rewards the persistent, not the impatient. When you rush, you create friction. You push harder but go nowhere faster. When you align, you create flow, and in flow, progress feels natural, not forced. The greatest achievers aren't in a hurry. They've learned that time is a long-term partner, not a short-term competitor. They trust the process because they respect the pace. Impatience is what makes people quit right before momentum builds. They can't see the progress that's forming underneath, so they assume nothing's working. But the truth is, time works silently before it works suddenly. Every day of consistent effort adds invisible strength, until one day the world finally notices what time has been building behind the scenes. You see this everywhere. The athlete who trains for years before becoming an overnight success. The writer who spends a decade honing their voice before publishing their breakout book. The entrepreneur who fails for years before creating something that lasts. They all learn to work with time, not against it. The impatient mind looks for proof. The disciplined mind trusts the process. You have to stop demanding results on your timeline and start respecting life's timeline. Because growth operates on delay, not denial. Just because you haven't arrived yet doesn't mean you're not on the right path. Sometimes time is protecting you from premature success. Because unearned success is unstable. What comes too fast often leaves just as quickly. Time slows things down to strengthen your foundation, to make sure you're ready to hold what you're asking for. So when it feels like things aren't happening fast enough, remind yourself, it's not delay, it's development. You're being stretched, not stalled. You're being prepared, not punished. The question is not, when will I get there? The real question is, who am I becoming while I wait? Because the waiting is what shapes you. It humbles you. It teaches you to appreciate the journey, not just the destination. The person who grows slowly learns gratitude, discipline, and grace, the qualities that ensure their success lasts. Time is your greatest filter. It reveals what's real and what's temporary. Quick achievements often fade because they lack depth. But what's built with patience has roots. It weathers storms, criticism, and doubt. Stop measuring your progress by speed and start measuring it by sustainability. You don't need a fast life. You need a full one. And fullness comes from rhythm, from knowing when to push, when to pause, when to reflect. The art of managing time is really the art of managing energy. When your energy aligns with purpose, time stretches. Have you ever noticed that? When you're in flow, doing something you love, something meaningful, hours pass like minutes. But when you're distracted, anxious, or disengaged, even minutes feel like hours. That's the secret most people miss. Time isn't measured by clocks, it's measured by presence. If you want to change your relationship with time, deepen your presence. Slow down when you move. Focus when you act. Be fully here when you're here. Because being scattered in 1,000 directions makes time vanish. Being grounded in one makes it expand. Every day, choose intentionality over urgency. The modern world glorifies haste, rushing from one goal to the next, from one dopamine hit to another, but that's not growth, that's escape. Rushing is what insecure ambition looks like. Patience is what mature purpose looks like. When you start trusting time, you stop forcing outcomes. You no longer feel the need to control every detail. You understand that effort is your responsibility, but timing belongs to something greater. Life, rhythm, the unseen alignment of events. And that surrender, that trust, brings peace. Because once you stop racing the clock, you can finally live. You begin to see that time isn't moving against you, it's moving with you. Every day that passes isn't a day lost. It's a day lived, a day learned, a day layered into your evolution. The greatest gift you can give yourself is patience. Not passive waiting, but powerful persistence. The kind of patience that says, I'm not rushing because I know what's mine will meet me when I'm ready. That's the mindset of mastery. And in time it always proves right. Because everything meaningful, wisdom, mastery, love, peace, requires time to mature. The things that come fast are often the ones that leave fast. But the things that grow slow are the ones that last forever. A tree that grows overnight can be uprooted by a strong wind. But a tree that grows over years develops roots that can outlast storms. You are that tree. Your patience is your roots. Your consistency is your growth. Your time is your soil. So stop envying the flowers that bloom quickly. Most of them fade by the next season. You are building something that will last for decades. Every second you spend improving, learning, or healing, even when no one sees it, is time invested, not wasted. Because here's the truth. Time never betrays those who use it with intention. When you start honoring the pace of your process, time becomes your partner. It begins to reward you quietly, then suddenly. The world calls it luck, but it's not. It's the visible result of invisible consistency, compounded by time. So breathe. Slow down. Trust the timeline. You are not behind. You are exactly where you're meant to be for this stage of your growth. Your story is still unfolding, one page, one lesson, one day at a time. And when it's all said and done, you'll realize something powerful. Time was never your enemy. It was your greatest teacher, patient, fair, and faithful. It wasn't trying to delay your growth. It was ensuring that when you finally arrived, you'd be strong enough to stay. Because what compiles slowly, endures eternally. And the person who learns to trust time, becomes timeless. Thing 9. Excuses are defense mechanisms that protect weakness. They're the stories your mind tells to justify inaction, the subtle lies you whisper to stay comfortable. And while they may sound harmless, Excuses are the invisible walls between who you are and who you could be. Every time you make one, you reinforce limitation. You build a psychological cage made of your own logic, convincing yourself that you're being realistic, when in truth you're just being afraid. You'll always find a reason not to act. Time, fear, uncertainty, lack of support, the perfect moment that never comes. But here's the truth, none of them build strength. Excuses only build avoidance, and avoidance becomes habit. When you say, "I'll start when I'm ready," what you're really saying is, "I'll wait until it's safe." But growth doesn't happen in safety, it happens in movement. The bridge between potential and progress is not knowledge, it's execution. Excuses make you feel smart, but action makes you strong. And that's the trap. Excuses are rational. They sound reasonable. They protect your ego from the pain of failure. But they also rob you of evolution. You don't grow through what you avoid. You grow through what you do, even imperfectly. Replace excuses with experiments. That's the shift that changes everything. Because the mind resists commitment, but it embraces curiosity. When you stop telling yourself you have to succeed and instead tell yourself you're going to experiment, fear loses power. You no longer fear failure because experiments can't fail. They can only reveal. Execution is how you learn what theory can't teach. You can read endlessly about discipline, success, or confidence, but until you act, it's all potential knowledge. Execution turns ideas into evidence. Action is the ultimate teacher. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you collect data. You discover what works, what doesn't, what needs adjusting. Action brings clarity, hesitation breeds confusion. Most people say they're waiting for motivation. But motivation doesn't create action. Action creates motivation. The hardest part is starting because motion itself fuels momentum. Once you begin, resistance weakens. You don't need to feel ready to act. You need to act to become ready. Excuses thrive in stillness. The longer you wait, the louder they become. They multiply in your mind like static, convincing you that inaction is wisdom. But it's not wisdom, it's fear wearing a mask. You have to train your brain to move before it negotiates. Don't wait for confidence. Create it through repetition. Every small act of execution sends a message to your mind, "We're capable." And slowly the excuses start to fade, because your proof becomes louder than your fear. The truth is, your excuses will always feel valid in the moment. Your mind will always protect you from discomfort. It's built for survival, not success. That's why comfort feels safe. It's familiar, predictable, low risk. But comfort and growth can't coexist. Every time you give in to an excuse, you strengthen your comfort zone and weaken your willpower. Every time you push through one, you expand your capacity. Ask yourself, what has my comfort cost me? The answer is always the same: growth, confidence, potential. You don't need better conditions to start, you need stronger decisions. Because here's the truth, your excuses don't disappear when circumstances improve. They just change shape. If you don't conquer them now, they'll follow you into every new opportunity. "I don't have time" will become "I'm too tired." "I'm not ready" will become "it's not the right moment." "I don't know how" will become "what if it doesn't work?" Different words, same pattern. Avoidance dressed as logic. So break that pattern. Turn every excuse into a question. I don't have time. How can I make time? I don't know how. Who can I learn from? It's not perfect. What's one imperfect step I can take today? What if I fail? What if I succeed? Questions dismantle excuses because they redirect your brain from protection to problem solving. And once your brain starts solving instead of stalling, momentum begins. Excuses love perfectionism. Perfection is their favorite disguise because it sounds noble. But perfectionism is just procrastination wearing discipline's clothes. You say you're waiting to do it right, but what you're really doing is avoiding doing it at all. Action beats perfection, every single time. Progress happens not because you do it flawlessly, but because you do it frequently. Every repetition, every small execution compounds into mastery. Think about the people you admire most. They're not perfect, they're persistent. They've failed more times than most people have tried. They didn't wait for ideal conditions. They created movement in chaos. That's the mindset you need. Imperfect execution beats perfect hesitation. Because life doesn't reward intention, it rewards implementation. You can have the best ideas, the biggest dreams, the clearest goals, but without execution they die in your imagination. You don't rise to the level of your plans. You fall to the level of your action. Replace every I should with I will. Replace every someday with today. Replace every I can't with I'll try. And then move, because nothing changes until you do. You'll never outthink your excuses, you have to outwork them. Excuses may protect your pride in the moment, but execution protects your future forever. And the best part? Once you start executing consistently, excuses lose their meaning. You stop needing to justify yourself because you have results that speak for you. Action silences doubt. Execution is the language of self-respect. Every time you act despite discomfort, you're telling yourself, my goals matter more than my fear. And that belief, that conviction, compounds faster than any excuse ever could. Because one act of execution can undo years of hesitation. Excuses are easy, execution is earned. One keeps you safe, the other makes you powerful. And if you want to transform your life, you have to decide which one you're loyal to, your comfort or your commitment. Every excuse you make is a subtle agreement with limitation. It's you saying, this is as far as I'm willing to go. But the truth is, it's never your capability that holds you back. It's your conditioning. You've been trained to seek safety, to avoid failure, to fear judgment. Excuses are simply how your fear speaks in logic's voice. It says, I'm too tired. Translation, I've stopped managing my priorities. It's not the right time. Translation, I'm scared to start. I'll do it later. Translation, I don't believe I can do it now. I don't feel ready. Translation, I want certainty before courage. But courage doesn't come before action, it comes from it. Execution is what transforms uncertainty into confidence. You act first, you learn second, you grow third. That's the sequence of success. The problem is, most people get trapped in what psychologists call analysis paralysis. They overthink, overplan, and overprepare until the window for action closes. They confuse motion with progress, constantly researching, strategizing, and setting goals but never doing. You don't need more preparation, you need more participation. Start before you're ready. Because readiness is an illusion, it never arrives. The only way to become ready is through repetition. Every step forward, no matter how clumsy, sharpens your skills and strengthens your belief. Execution is the antidote to fear. Every time you act, you prove to your brain that discomfort isn't deadly. You build evidence that you can handle challenge, uncertainty, and failure. And once your mind starts seeing proof of your own power, it stops believing your excuses. That's how transformation happens, one brave action at a time. Action isn't just movement, it's mindset training. It teaches your subconscious that you are the type of person who follows through. That identity shift is everything. Because once you start believing you're someone who executes, your standards rise automatically. You'll stop accepting your own excuses. You'll stop negotiating with procrastination. You'll stop waiting for someday, because you'll realize someday never comes. Execution doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be deliberate. Don't underestimate small steps. The brain thrives on momentum, not magnitude. It doesn't matter if your action today is massive or microscopic. What matters is consistency. One small step daily destroys the biggest excuse. It's too hard. Hard things only feel hard until they become habits. Once something becomes part of your rhythm, it no longer drains your energy, it becomes automatic. That's the power of consistent execution. It rewires your default behavior. What was once effort becomes identity. You start seeing results not because you're doing something revolutionary but because you stop doing nothing. And results create belief. Belief fuels more action. That's the compounding effect of execution. Each win, no matter how small, makes the next step easier. Meanwhile, excuses compound in the opposite direction. Each excuse makes the next one easier to believe. Each tomorrow makes today weaker. Each avoidance teaches your brain that procrastination is safer than effort. You're always reinforcing something, Either your excuses or your execution. Every day you're training one. So, which side are you strengthening right now? There's no neutral zone. You're either moving forward or staying stuck. The illusion of standing still is just another excuse, because in reality you're regressing every time you choose inaction. Execution means deciding that progress matters more than pride. You'll mess up, yes. You'll fail, yes. But failure during action still moves you closer than perfection during hesitation. Most people are afraid of being bad at something new, so they never start. But every master was terrible once. Every confident speaker once stuttered. Every successful creator once doubted their work. Execution isn't about perfection. It's about progress under pressure. The world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most consistent. Show up when it's inconvenient. Move when you're uncertain. Act when no one's watching. That's how execution becomes your edge. When you build a bias toward action, your energy changes. You stop saying, "I wish," and start saying, "I'm working on it." You stop hoping and start doing. You stop waiting and start moving. And soon, results replace excuses. You begin to realize that most of what you thought were limitations were just delays created by hesitation. Because once you act, the path becomes clear. Every excuse exists only in theory. Execution kills theory with truth. That's why people who execute consistently seem fearless. Not because they don't feel fear, but because they've learned that fear fades faster in motion than in stagnation. Action dissolves doubt. Each time you move despite fear, you build emotional muscle. You realize that discomfort isn't a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're in the zone where growth lives. Execution teaches you that clarity comes after courage. So here's the mindset shift. Stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start asking, "What's my next move?" The first question leads to analysis. The second leads to action. Don't wait for the big leap. Take the next step. Big goals are just a series of small, consistent executions. If you wrote 1 page a day, you'd have a book in a year. If you exercise for 20 minutes daily, you'd transform your body in months. If you worked on your dream for 1 hour each morning, you'd change your life within a year. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. And the only thing standing between you and that consistency is the story you tell yourself about why you can't start today. Rewrite that story. Because your excuses aren't protecting you, they're limiting you. You don't need more reasons to act. You just need fewer reasons to wait. If it's important, start now. If it scares you, start small. If it feels impossible, start anyway. Execution doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Every action you take says, "I'm still in the game." Every excuse you make says, "I've surrendered before trying." Choose which statement you want your life to make. When you shift from excuses to execution, something powerful happens. You stop being a thinker of ideas and start being a creator of results. Because the truth is, execution is freedom. It frees you from overthinking, from self-doubt, from regret. It gives you power over the one thing you can truly control, what you do next. So stop explaining. Stop waiting. Stop negotiating. Start executing. Because someday is a myth. Later is a trap. And when I'm ready is the excuse that buries most potential. You'll never be ready, but you can be willing. And willingness, followed by consistent action, will take you further than any perfect plan ever could. Excuses protect weakness. Execution reveals strength. So from this moment on, stop defending your limitations. Start demonstrating your possibilities. Because action, not intention, is the proof of belief. And the only way to find out how powerful you really are is to stop explaining why you can't and start showing the world that you will. Thing 10. Your standard sets your ceiling. It decides how far you rise, how much you grow, and how deeply you live. Every goal, habit, and outcome in your life is a reflection of one thing: what you're willing to tolerate from yourself. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you accept. Growth begins the moment you stop negotiating with your own potential. When you stop saying, "It's okay," when you know it's not. When you stop giving half effort and calling it enough. When you stop settling for almost. Because the truth is, your life doesn't rise to your goals, it rises to your standards. You can dream as big as you want, But if your standard for effort, focus, and consistency remains low, your results will never match your vision. People often blame circumstances, luck, or timing, but most limitations come from one place: a low personal standard. You've accepted average effort from yourself for too long. You've mistaken comfort for peace and lowered the bar to protect your ego from the discomfort of failure. But every version of you that's waiting to emerge, stronger, sharper, more disciplined, is on the other side of a raised standard. Growth happens when you stop accepting the version of you that settles. When you stop allowing your emotions to decide your effort. When you stop treating commitment as optional. Excellence begins where excuses end. It's easy to work hard when it feels good. It's harder, and far more powerful, to hold yourself to a high standard when it doesn't. Raising your standard means deciding that your minimum is no longer negotiable. That the things you used to do when you felt like it now become your baseline. You stop trying to rise to the occasion. You become the occasion. Your new normal must challenge your old limits. Excellence isn't an event, it's a lifestyle. It's a daily decision to show up like someone who respects their own potential. Not when motivation hits, but every single day, especially when no one's watching. Because that's the true test, what you demand from yourself in silence. Anyone can perform when the world is cheering. But growth happens in private, in the quiet moments when you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over comfort. You don't need to compete with others, you need to compete with your own mediocrity. Ask yourself, what version of me am I tolerating? The version that procrastinates when it gets hard? The version that breaks promises to itself? The version that's motivated only by validation? That version doesn't deserve another year of your life. You've been loyal to comfort for too long. It's time to be loyal to potential. When you raise your standard, you automatically raise your energy. You walk differently. You talk differently. You think differently. Because you've decided that the old you, the one that tolerated inconsistency and excuses, is no longer in charge. This isn't about perfection, it's about principle. You don't need to be flawless, you just need to be faithful to your standard. Raising your standard doesn't mean working harder, it means expecting more from the hours you already give. It means tightening your focus, sharpening your execution, refining your discipline. Because when you raise your standard, your environment adjusts. Your circle shifts. Your habits evolve. People who can't match your frequency naturally fade, not because you're better, but because you've changed the altitude. The higher your standard, the clearer your path becomes. But raising your standard also means becoming brutally honest with yourself. No more pretending. No more almost. No more, I'll start tomorrow. The standard you set must be visible in your actions, not just your words. It's not enough to say you want growth. You have to live in a way that demands it. Every day you're teaching your mind what's acceptable. When you skip a commitment, you lower your standard. When you follow through despite difficulty, you raise it. You're either building credibility with yourself or breaking it. There's no neutral zone. So start small, but start relentlessly. If your standard is discipline, don't skip it. If your standard is honesty, don't bend it. If your standard is effort, don't give half. Because every time you honor your standard, you build identity. And once identity takes root, excellence becomes automatic. That's the secret. High standards don't feel like effort after a while. They become your normal. You no longer have to try to be disciplined. It feels natural. You no longer have to force effort. It's who you are. People often say raise your goals. But goals are targets, they can move. Standards are the ground you stand on. They don't move, they define who you are. And when your standards rise, everything in your life follows. Your work, your health, your relationships, your energy. Because the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you believe you deserve. When you raise your standard, you stop asking for things that don't match your level. You stop settling for effort that doesn't reflect your worth. You stop allowing mediocrity to stay comfortable around you. You attract what aligns with your standard, and repel what doesn't. That's why raising your standard isn't selfish, it's self-respect. It's the moment you say, I'm done living beneath my potential. Your standard must be non-negotiable. Not because it makes life easier, but because it makes you unbreakable. So from today, decide, what's my new minimum? Maybe it's waking up on time, even when you don't want to. Maybe it's showing up with focus, even when you're tired. Maybe it's giving 100% effort, even when no one notices. That's how greatness is built, not through grand gestures but through quiet consistency. Every day you raise your standard by one small act of self-respect. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to prove it. You just need to live it over and over until your standard becomes your identity. Because when you make excellence your minimum requirement, not your rare achievement, you stop chasing greatness. You start embodying it. Raising your standard isn't a single act. It's a daily declaration. It's not something you decide once. It's something you prove every morning. Because standards aren't built in motivation. They're built in maintenance. Anyone can be excellent once in a while. But real strength is being excellent by default. Not occasionally, consistently. Excellence isn't doing more. It's doing what matters without compromise. When you decide to raise your standard, life will test that decision immediately. You'll be tempted to fall back into old patterns, old excuses, old habits. That's not a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're evolving. Because every time you demand more from yourself, the old version of you resists. That resistance is the battlefield between your potential and your past. Most people lose there, not because they're weak but because they expect comfort. But growth never feels comfortable at first. When you hold yourself to a higher standard, you'll feel friction. You'll feel tired. You'll feel moments of doubt. You'll question if it's worth it. That's when most people quit, not realizing that discomfort is the proof that the new standard is working. Discomfort means you're raising the bar. You cannot reach higher if you refuse to stretch. The real challenge isn't the standard itself, it's consistency with it. You can raise your standard for a day, a week, or even a month. But to truly transform, that standard must become your identity. Identity means you no longer try to live up to your standard. You are your standard. It's not, I'm trying to be disciplined. It's, I am disciplined. It's not, I'm trying to be consistent. It's, I am consistent. It's not, I'm trying to be excellent. It's, I don't accept less. When you adopt that mindset, something shifts internally. You stop treating discipline as punishment and start seeing it as freedom. You stop needing motivation to do the work because doing the work becomes your nature. And once your nature aligns with your standard, you become unstoppable. That's why the people who achieve greatness rarely talk about motivation. They talk about commitment. They've raised their standards so high that falling short simply isn't an option. They don't argue with themselves about showing up. They just do it. That's not obsession. That's integrity. Integrity isn't about being honest with others. It's about being honest with yourself. It's keeping promises no one else can see. Your standard must be rooted in integrity, not image. Don't raise it to impress people. Raise it to respect yourself. Because when you live below your standard, you feel it, that quiet guilt, that restless dissatisfaction. It's not punishment. It's your potential reminding you that you're capable of more. Stop silencing that voice with distractions. Listen to it, it's your inner compass. Raising your standard is about alignment, not arrogance. It's not saying, I'm better than others. It's saying, I'm better than the version of me that keeps settling. And that competition, you versus you, is the only one that matters. Every day you wake up with two choices. You can repeat yesterday's habits, or you can reinforce tomorrow's potential. The first keeps you safe. The second keeps you growing. When you raise your standard, you'll notice the world responds differently. People treat you according to the energy you emit. When you respect your time, others do too. When you demand excellence from yourself, mediocrity stops feeling comfortable around you. That's the beauty of high standards. They don't just change you, they change your environment. You'll lose people, yes, but you'll gain purpose. You'll outgrow conversations that revolve around complaints. You'll lose interest in places that drain your ambition. You'll start craving solitude, focus, and growth. That's not isolation, that's elevation. And as you elevate, you'll begin to realize that high standards aren't about perfection. They're about alignment. They're about ensuring that every part of your life, your work, your health, your habits, your relationships, reflects the level of self-respect you've built. When you stop settling, you stop suffering from inconsistency. Mediocrity feels heavy because it's out of sync with your potential. Excellence feels light because it's natural. It's not supposed to feel like strain forever. It becomes serenity once it becomes who you are. Raising your standard will also demand that you redefine success. Most people chase outcomes. Those with high standards chase integrity. They measure success not by results alone, but by effort, consistency, and alignment with their values. That's the secret to long-term peace. When your actions match your principles, time stops being stressful. You no longer live in guilt or chase validation. You know you're doing your best because your standard doesn't allow otherwise. And here's something most people never realize. High standards create peace, not pressure. Low standards cause anxiety because deep down you know you're capable of more. You know you're settling. You know you're breaking promises to yourself. That inner conflict drains you. But when you raise your standard and live up to it, your mind calms. There's no guilt, no internal debate, no mental noise. Just quiet confidence, the peace that comes from self-trust. That's what high standards really give you, peace through discipline. Raising your standard doesn't mean you'll never fail again. You'll still stumble. You'll still make mistakes. But your recovery will be faster because your new standard won't allow you to stay down. You'll correct faster. You'll refocus quicker. You'll move forward stronger. Because now, excellence isn't an event, it's your baseline. And every time you honor that standard, every time you show up when it's inconvenient, every time you do the hard thing without being told, every time you say no to what's easy, you're telling the world, this is who I am now. Your standard is your identity in action. And if you keep it high, if you refuse to lower it to match the world around you, you'll rise above everything that once held you back. You'll no longer chase confidence. You'll radiate it. You'll no longer crave recognition. You'll embody it. You'll no longer need validation, because you'll know you've earned self-respect. So here's the truth to remember. Your ceiling is set by your standard. Your standard is enforced by your choices. And your choices define your destiny. You can't control everything, but you can control that. So raise your standard daily, not in leaps but in layers. Hold yourself to excellence in the small things. Speak with intention. Work with pride. Follow through with consistency. And slowly, excellence will stop being something you reach for. It'll become who you are. Because when excellence becomes your minimum requirement, not your rare achievement, you don't just change your results. You change your reality. And the best part? Once you've lived at that level, you can never go back. Because once you've tasted what it feels like to demand more of yourself, you'll never again settle for less. Growth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming someone honest. You already know what's holding you back. You've always known. But now you have a choice. You can keep repeating the same comfortable patterns and call it life. Or you can start removing everything that keeps you small. You can't change your future until you change your present, and the present begins with these 10 things. Let go of comfort. Silence the critic in your head. Surround yourself with energy that challenges you. Stop chasing approval. Protect your focus. Master your time. Every day, refine one habit, one thought, one reaction. That's how evolution really happens. One honest adjustment at a time. Because growth doesn't demand perfection. It demands intention. So if you truly want to grow, then commit to it. Commit to the hard choices. Commit to the discipline. Commit to yourself. You have everything you need: strength, focus, and time. Now you just need courage. The courage to change. The courage to evolve. The courage to grow. This is your turning point. This is your new standard. This is your moment to rise. Because everything changes the moment you decide you will too.